Hello, how are you doing today? I hope that you are doing good. I hope all is well with you. I'm going to try to start a new weekly series, uh, scriptural, and I hope that it'll be beneficial to you. I'll try to have these at least once a week, and if you like it, I will try to do it maybe twice a week, but at least I will do it at least once a week. Tonight, though, I'm going to be speaking about one of the fruit of the Spirit, peace. We all need peace in our lives, don't we? We do not have peace in our lives in our society. We don't because we have moved out of our parents' house, meaning God's house. House as far as you and I being obedient to God, being faithful to Him, being able to have peace. When you lived with your parents, hopefully you lived in a neighborhood that was good. Hopefully you lived in a neighborhood that was uh, peaceful. And when you first moved out of your house, whether uh, to the college dorm or out on your own, it was scary, wasn't it? And maybe there wasn't much peace because, well, you was in a new environment and things weren't always the way, or definitely not ever the way they used to be, especially if you moved out of your parents' house out of a nice, cozy neighborhood, maybe into a part of town that you could afford to live in, which wasn't very good at all. And so you lacked peace. You lacked the security that you had when you was with your parents' home. Now, some things are contributing to that. Maybe you didn't get along with your parents. Maybe there was just something there that kept you from having the relationship that you thought you needed to have, or that you would like to have, or maybe both of them like to have. But whatever the reason is, peace is something that you and I need to have in our lives. Why is peace important, or how important is peace? Without peace, we can see what happens in our society. Without peace in our society, we've become divided. We have no idea how we are to talk to each other. We certainly don't know how to talk to strangers. We don't know how to talk to acquaintances. We don't even know really how to talk to family because we're so divided. We're divided, especially on politics. Doesn't take much to see that, doesn't take much to understand that. Politics is a divisive thing, it always has been. But I can remember a time, and maybe I was too young and naive at, when I say this, but I can remember a time when it seemed like at least after the election, which would normally start maybe a year before everything comes to a head, before the actual election. But after the election, sure, there'd be the mudslinging. Even during the election time, there'd be the mudslinging, there'd be the blame game, there'd be this, there'd be that. But it seemed like after the election that both sides could find something to agree upon, and that was usually to help the common person, the citizens. It doesn't seem to be that way anymore, does it? It doesn't seem like we ever get a break from the political divisiveness. I blame social media for that, and also the mainstream media. I blame them because we can hear everybody's opinion 24/7 if we want. And sometimes that's bad. And so we're divided. We don't know how to talk to each other. We can't communicate. We can't say, well, let's agree to disagree and go on and try to help build a better future. Seems like those days are gone. Without peace, we have become hateful. Not only have we become divided, but we have become hateful. It doesn't matter if you don't agree with me, you are terrible. You're lower than pond scum, and pond scum is pretty low. You get my point? We have become hateful to the point where it doesn't matter if someone has a good idea or not. We're not going to like it no matter what. We have become a society that despises each other. We've also, without peace in our society, have become fearful. We fear everything, don't we? We fear the economy of not having a job. We fear of going to the grocery store, paying the high prices for groceries and for gas. We fear those who are in charge, those who are in leadership positions, because we think that they are there for themselves and themselves only, which may be true to some extent. But we're fearful. We're fearful of our neighbors. We're fearful of someone that a couple of people that we may see talking, and we have no idea what they're talking about, but we just know that they're talking something about us. Without peace in our society, we have become violent. Have you ever watched some things on social media? It's terrible what some people are posting out there on social media. People who get so upset at seemingly something that was by accident, maybe got cut off in traffic. And sure enough, someone gets out of a car that stopped, and they'll go up and they'll start banging on the windows on the cars. They may even take out something, some kind of a club, ball bat, or something, and start hitting the car. People are violent. Goes along with hateful, doesn't it? Well, it's all because we have no peace. And without peace, we have become a society with despair. We have great disparity in our lives. We just groan about having to live our lives. We have no joy in our lives because we have no peace in our lives. All is hopeless. As Ecclesiastes writers would say, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. And finally, what I came up with, we have become a society with doubt. We doubt everything, don't we? We doubt that anything good is ever going to happen with whoever gets in office. We just know the world is going to fall apart. That's why we have so many people going around crying like Chicken Little. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. It's because we have no peace. And I believe God put peace in the writings of when he describes the fruit of the Spirit for a reason. You know the fruit of the Spirit, don't you? There's love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. 9 characteristics, if you will, or as Peter says in 2 Peter chapter 1, qualities of the Spirit. Without love, you can't have joy. Without love and joy, you can't have peace. And without peace, you can't have love. And without peace, you can't have joy. And without peace, it's doubtful that you can have any of the other fruit of the Spirit. Definitely, you won't have self-control, will you? Because in order to have self-control, you have to have peace. So how can we achieve peace? Are we a society that has gone too far to ever achieve peace? I don't think so. I think what Paul talks about in Philippians chapter 4, verse 7 really rings true. To get to peace that surpasses all understanding, we need to do some things. The first thing is we need to move back into God's house. We need to get back to God, which means we need to let God know us. In Galatians chapter 4, verses 8 and 9, Paul says, now that you have come to know God, or rather to be known by God. You see, although God does know who we are, He made every one of us, He created us. There's something special about that verse that Paul talks about being known by God. You have to be known by God. The second thing is we need to let God lead us. Galatians chapter 5:24, after Paul talks about the fruit of the Spirit, he says, if we walk by the Spirit, we'll be led by the Spirit. Kind of paraphrasing that a little bit. But if we're led by the Spirit, we're going to let God do the thinking for us. We're going to let God do the leading for us. We also need to let God cleanse us. David in Psalms 51, first few verses, talk about his sin ever being before God and how he wants God to get rid of his sin. That means we have to acknowledge that we're sinful and that we need God in our lives. Which means that we need to do some things. If we're going to let God do these things for us or to us, we need to do some things on ourselves to reciprocate or allow God to do those things. And that means we need to trust God. So many times the psalmist talks about trusting God. We also need to be patient with God. Psalms 46:10, be still and know that I am the Lord. Also in Psalms 37, verse 7. We need to understand who God is and understand that He is in charge. Now, it doesn't mean that we just sit back and do nothing, but it means that we need to let God do what He needs to do for our lives to be successful. It may not be pleasant. God teaches us all lessons somehow, some way in our lives. Sometimes those lessons are very, very unpleasant to learn. But if we put our trust in God and we let God lead us and we let God cleanse us from our sins, we then can trust God to do the right things and let God, or be patient with God in what He needs to do in our lives, which means we are going to have to let God be in control. In Mark chapter 4, 35 through 41, Jesus is on the water with his disciples, and a storm comes up, and Jesus is in the bottom of the boat sleeping. It's a fishing boat, so there's a little bit of room down below where they would bring up their net and they would empty it into the hold, and they'd continue fishing if they needed to, or other. But Jesus was down there taking a nap. He'd been sleeping, or he'd been working, and he's tired, and he's taking a nap. But a storm comes up, and not just any ordinary storm, but a storm that is violent. The waves are crashing over the boat, and the disciples become scared, and they look around, and they're looking for Jesus, and they find him, and they come up to him, and they wake him up and says, Master, do you not care that we are perishing? And Jesus rebukes them for their lack of faith. Oh, we need to let God be in control, even when we don't think He's near, or even when we don't think that He's doing anything. Jesus is busy trying to get us to be with Him and try to get us to be, or try to get us to let Him be in control, which means we need to be obedient. Philippians, again, chapter 3, verse 7, Paul says he counted all things rubbish so that he could know Jesus. All of his past life that he could take stock in, that people would say, wow, that's pretty good. A Pharisee of Pharisees, born on the circumcised on the 8th day, just like they're supposed to be. He could trace his lineage all the way back. But yet Paul said, I threw all that away in order to know Christ. And finally, we can't worry. Philippians chapter 4, verse 6, Paul says, do not be anxious. Don't worry about tomorrow. Jesus would say that in Matthew chapter 6. Don't worry about today or tomorrow. There's enough worry and fear that goes on in the world. But if we are faithful to Jesus and we are obedient to Him and we are His, why do we have to worry for? There's nothing for us to worry about, is there? And yet, because we have moved ourselves out of God's house, a place of security, a place of rest, a place of peace, we have become a very unpeaceful society. I hope that you have enjoyed my lesson, and I pray that I will be able to come to you again shortly and hopefully have another scripture to talk about. Probably do the fruit of the Spirit. It's something that we need in our society today. Well, have a good evening. God bless. And I pray that you will have a peaceful night. Thank you.